What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another My Week With video. So this time, Kia has dropped off the all-new 2020 Telluride here for me to drive around for a week. And so I did already do a review on the Telluride here, but that was a few months back and I only had a few hours with the Telluride. And so I got a pretty good feel for it in those few hours, but it's always nice having a vehicle for an entire week to kind of get some more developed and in-depth impressions here on it. And really the cliff notes here is that the more that I drive this, the more that I enjoy it. And I think after spending a week with one now, this would be my pick in the three-row segment out of all the ones that I've driven. I still have not driven the brand new Hyundai Palisade yet, but barring that one, this would definitely be my pick. That's the only other wild card that might beat it. But I mean, you know, there's siblings, so there's going to be a lot of similarities between the two of them. But I really love the Telluride. Just everything about it, it's just enjoyable to drive. Now I will say that, you know, from an enthusiast standpoint, since I am a driving enthusiast, I will say that I still don't think it handles quite as well as the Honda Pilot with its true torque vectoring and stuff. But this is really, really close. So close that all the things that the Telluride does better than the Pilot would have me choose it over the Pilot, and also over all of the other competitors, the CX-9 and you know, all those other, you know, the Volkswagen Atlas, stuff like that. You know, this I still prefer over all of those. And it's mostly just a great combination of it handles so well. It's really flat for a three-row crossover. A lot of the other ones are mushier. I like that this is flat without being too rough, and it gives you just everything you want and expect it to do. You know, it's very responsive. You know, throttle response is great. It has really nice steering weight. Everything it doesn't feel too soft. Some of the others, like the Subaru Ascent, is a little too soft in a lot of areas, and you know, this they just fine-tuned everything the way that at least I prefer, and I think a lot of others will prefer. And I mean, there's already, at least at the time of filming this, there are long wait lists at many Kia dealers for people waiting to get these. So there's a lot of buzz around them, and for good reason. These things are spectacular, and I think, you know, the second someone sits down in one of these and, you know, looks at the price tag and goes and takes it for a test drive, you know, it's very hard to argue against. And I'm in that camp. I think it's a spectacular vehicle, and not only because of the driving dynamics, that's only one very small part of it, but also just the interior. They did such a good job of thinking through everything on this interior, and although it doesn't have the acres of storage space up front here like you get with the Honda Pilot, which I think is best in class as far as physical space goes on, you know, cubbies and storage areas and stuff, this is still so well thought out. I love that there's another little slot here for your phone in addition to the two cup holders. I love the wireless charging pad, which is a great size. All the hookups you need, all the cup holders you need. I love this widescreen display, which is best in segment, really. And you know, the wood trim, the metal buttons, all that stuff makes this feel like it's almost a class above basically all those competitors, which all have plastic buttons everywhere, smaller standard 8-inch screens, and all that kind of stuff, which is fine for a family hauler. You know, again, you don't have to have this extra mile of you know, additional stuff here, but I like that Kia went the extra mile, and they came out swinging, and that you can tell that they really tried hard on this, and it shows. It's really a great fresh entry into this segment, which has gotten a little stale over the past few years. But because one of the main features of the Telluride is its third row, I do have some more impressions on that. So actually, I had my friend come up for the weekend, and they have an infant that was in a rear-facing car seat, and we were able to put that there in the second row in those captain's chairs, and it gave a plenty amount of room for that. And even with, you know, me being 5'9" and my seating position being completely comfortable, not forward any further than I normally would have it, that seat still had about an inch or two of clearance there to spare. So even if you are a little bit on the taller side, you know, you will be able to have plenty of space back there. Now, the only thing that I was a little surprised by as far as the spaciousness of the Telluride is the lack of third row legroom. So whenever I originally did my review of the Telluride here, me sitting behind myself in all three rows, I had enough room. Now, it wasn't super spacious. Nothing really in this segment is, unless you go to the next class up for the massive stuff like the Navigator and things like that. But I had plentiful amount of space. But interestingly, so whenever I had this vehicle loaded up with every seat filled, 3 across that bench there in the rear, it was a little cramped for 3 adults, and especially the 2 that were sitting on the outboard seats were a little over 6 feet tall, and at 6 feet tall, they weren't super comfortable. Now they weren't complaining too loudly, but you know, I knew that they weren't super comfortable, and they could have used an extra inch or two of legroom, and that was an option on the passenger side because there's just a normal adult sitting in there, and those second row seats do slide forwards and backwards, but in order to have enough clearance for the rear-facing child seat, there wasn't any give room for that you know, driver's side person that was in that third row there. And so you know, so that's kind of just something to keep in mind. Again, that's a very specific situation of having rear-facing car seats, which need tons of space, and having someone 6 foot tall or taller behind that seat. That is you know, not going to be a super common scenario, but if you happen to be in that scenario, you know, it's not going to be super you know, spacious, I guess. But that is really the only circumstance where you're going to find yourself lacking in space here in the Telluride. Otherwise, it has fantastic amount of, you know, space there, and should be great for most people, especially if you just have only kids sitting back there or people, again, shorter than 6 feet tall. No worries whatsoever, and really great back seat. I mean, every seat has their own USB jack. The second row seats here are ventilated as well as heated here in this top trim. So overall, you know, all that type of stuff is very good. The only one thing that is also a little bit annoying as regards to the cargo area and stuff is that this has an option, which sounds cool in theory, of this automatic opening rear tailgate. And so with that set up, you can turn it on or off, so you don't have to have it on. But with it on, if you just stand behind the vehicle for a few seconds, it'll automatically open up that hatch, which is great if you have, you know, a bunch of stuff in your arms and, you know, you don't want to be doing gymnastics underneath the bumper, swiping with your foot in order to open it up. It just does it automatically just by standing there, which is great, except this is a little too sensitive to react. And so me just walking around the back of the vehicle will do like 3 out of the 4 beeps. So it's almost like I have a timer, like, I gotta hurry up and like run around the back of the vehicle fast enough so that the rear hatch doesn't pop open automatically. And so I kind of wish there was a little bit more of a delay there. I get that they want to be quick with it, so you're not standing there waiting for it to do its thing. But you know, I just wish that it was a little bit more lenient with that, so that I was able to you know, not nearly set that off. And if you stand behind the back of this vehicle, well, you just basically can't if you have that setting enabled, because standing in, you know, behind it, it'll just pop open every time. And so just something to keep in mind about that feature there. Another thing, so I've been driving this vehicle for 110 miles now, and in my time of driving here, I've been averaging 17 miles per gallon. And these are rated at 19 in this city, 24 on the highway, and 21 combined. And I will say that my driving was almost entirely city stop and go type driving. There's a little bit of this longer cruising on back roads and stuff that wasn't quite as brake and gas intensive, but still, to be 2 mpg lower than the city rating, which should be about as low as you should be able to see, was a little disappointing, but that is kind of on par with my average driving in vehicles, as I tend to get about 2 mpg lower than the city rating on average. And again, it always depends on, you know, the type of driving I'm doing and stuff, but just something to keep in mind, that if you are doing, you know, intense city driving, you're not going to get that 19 number. You'll most likely be getting what I'm getting, you know, about 17, maybe even into the 16s, you know, depending on how liberal you are with your throttle applications. So, you know, and I also, again, for some of those miles, had this thing loaded up with 7 people. And of course, if you're driving solo or just, you know, with a couple of people, that's not going to be quite as taxing on this engine either. But the engine, like I said, it is great. Plentiful amount of power. Never wanted for more power. The transmission was almost always in the right gear. There were a few times where I was waiting a split second longer than I would have liked to, but that's average with everything in this segment. And so, you know, no mark against the Kia really in that regard either. And the last thing here is the pricing, which they also did very well in the Telluride. So this one, as tested, is just under $47,000 at $46,860 to be exact. And at that price, it is really hard to beat as well, because some of the fully loaded stuff like the Honda Pilots and their elite, you know, top trims can actually get close to about $49,000 or so. So you're actually saving a couple $1,000s here, and on top of that, you get a couple features you don't get in like the Pilot, for example, which I consider one of the other best ones in the class. You know, this has the cooled second row seats, which is something you can't even get in any of the other competitors. So, you know, that's a nice little feature. Like I said, just the metal in here and everything. This feels more like a $49,000 SUV than the Pilot does, that's for sure. And again, this only coming in less than $47,000 makes this really feel like a strong value in many ways, not only just because of its fantastic fantastic packaging and space usage, but all the great materials in here, and just everything about this vehicle is very impressive. And then you add to that the fact that it has a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and that is really something that, again, only Hyundai and Kia offer, and that makes this very impressive. So if you are someone who doesn't change vehicles every couple of years and you're actually buying a vehicle to hold on to it for a good long while, that's extra peace of mind that, you know, you're going to have a vehicle that's still going to have warranty coverage many years down the road. So you have 10 years of worry-free miles there. And so whenever you consider that, you know, this is a bit cheaper than a lot of the strong competitors in this segment, and you have slightly nicer materials, you know, really great amount of space, and that fantastic warranty to back it all up, as well as the boxy looks, which I think are a little more distinctive than some of the more streamlined crossovers in this segment too. It's really no wonder that there's waiting lists for these things at many Kia dealers, and it would be worth the wait. You know, that don't let that discourage you just because you might have to wait or hunt around a little bit more for a Telluride. There's a good reason why everyone wants one, and it's definitely worth checking out if you need a 3-row SUV. And yeah, so like I said at the beginning of the video, this would be my pick currently in the 3-row segment here. And so excellent job, Kia. Huge thanks to them as well for providing me with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the Telluride in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.